Alright, I am back with another Diablo 4 video. This one is a follow-up to my article yesterday about how I had run into what I would consider Diablo 4's first major challenge. That was the Capstone dungeon of Elias, where it is preventing you from getting to World Tier 4 unless you beat a very long dungeon, and what is definitely one of the hardest bosses I've encountered in the game. No, he was absolutely the hardest boss I've encountered in the game. The point being that, like, nothing before that was, like, all that difficult. Even endgame stuff, like Hell Tides, world bosses, like, they're slightly more difficult than average, but they're not that bad. The only thing you would really run into trouble with is, like, ultra high level elite mobs all stacked on top of each other in, like, nightmare dungeons you were underleveled for. Elias was nuts. Like, I went through there and my first time with my build that I thought was really good, that was, like, really doing well against everything else, and I just got absolutely wrecked by him. I could not get him down past a third health. He shoots these little, like, flaming skulls everywhere, plus he spawns ads all the time. Dodging projectiles is not something that is great on a melee barb, and, like, trying to go in and get a melee hit in and then run away again. So I really had to kind of go back to the drawing board to change a whole lot of stuff about my build. I was worried that I was going to have to completely respec and do, like, a more meta bleed build instead of this fun, stun death blow build that I kind of invented myself that I've been working on. I did beat him with my own build, and that was very gratifying. It just took a lot of readjustment, but if you want to know what I did, some people were wondering what my actual build was when I finally did beat him, so I was going to make a video about that today. I made at least a couple adjustments here based on some extra stuff about defense I learned. I think I'm going to write that up in an article later today, but I watched a video from a really good hardcore player about what's, like, the best thing to do. So the gems are different, but everything else I've essentially left the same. I do not have any ancestral gear yet that's good because I just got to World Tier 4, but I will go through it. So I guess I'll just start with my skills. Bash, only 1 point in Bash. Bash is here for, it gives you Fortify. Also, it lets your core skills overpower, and it produces Stun. This is a big effect of at least normal use of this, where I'm all about stunning enemies and doing damage while stunned. On Elias, this does apply at least some level of stagger to him, and then as you'll see, I have a bunch of gear that increases the speed of this, so you're applying stagger faster when you don't have other cooldowns up. I have Upheaval. Originally, I had this because I used it in combination with, like, a Call of the Ancients thing, where another guy would show up and do his own thing, but I realized that that wasn't the most useful. He wasn't doing that much damage, so I took that off. I did keep Upheaval, though, because Upheaval itself has a chance to stun, and it has a chance to Berserk, which Berserk is also a decent part of this build. Chance to stun for 20%, and then if it damage 2 enemies, 2 seconds of Berserking, 3 seconds of Berserking, and then I have an item where this is overleveled for 2 more ranks. Ground Stomp. This is really, really, really key. More key when you're doing, like, elite mobs and stuff, but this combined with an affix I'm using was very essential. This is an AoE stun. The AoE is not very big, but it does last 4.72 seconds, which is a whole lot of time for enemies to be stunned, so you can get in a death blow, an upheaval, and another death blow, which is very good. This one also generates Fury. I had this as ultimate cooldown before, and then I changed to a build that does not have an ultimate, so that really changed. Am I missing any No, I haven't done any passives yet. Okay. Passives, 15% additional life, and then I turned on... I didn't have this before, so I put 9% damage reduction against elites. And then this was a big one. So, Iron Skin. I swapped Challenging Shout. First I had War Cry, which was all damage. Then I had Challenging Shout. Apparently I have 4 ranks of this from item contribution. But I have Iron Skin. I only had this at 1 rank. But this is sort of your, like, emergency panic button when your health is low to just turn this on and pop a shield. Your barrier will absorb 65 or 60% of your missing life for 5 seconds. This version also gives you Fortify, which I have a good amount of stuff with Fortify and damage reduction from that. So that was essentially my only real survivability skill here, other than the stuff I added to my actual gear. I did end up turning on Warcry, so I did kind of need that extra damage. It makes you berserk for 4 seconds, and so that's with the capstone down here, that's 50% damage increase right there, plus if enemies are nearby, you get 10% additional damage dealt, so this is 28% damage dealt plus berserking. It's a lot of damage. It really does help a lot. I have so many things that are like item contribution 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5. I am not optimized, as you can see, for all that stuff. But this, I did think this was good and necessary for crushing through all the mobs and doing some more damage to Elias himself. I have this on, gain 9% damage reduction while berserking. One thing I learned from these recent defense videos is that damage reduction is essentially the most important thing in the game. It's damage reduction and armor. So anything you want that's just damage reduction is very important. Down here, Death Blow, 9 out of 5. So finally I have one of these 4 out of 5s actually contributing in a significant way. So this is doing 216% extra damage than it would normally, and it deals 100% more to bosses. So when I was first showing this build, I was showing how much I can chunk bosses, like an absurd amount. Like I could do a third, close to a half of a boss's health bar if like it was a crit, if it overpowered, like all these things came together. The problem was with Elias, it was chunking him but not enough, and then I changed some things and it started chunking him again. Not that much. Like I would say the good chunks were like 20%, but it was still a whole lot, and it really helped. Also, this gives berserking too, and Deathblow has stuff with my affixes that I will show you in a minute. A lot of passives here. So Pit Fighter, 9% increased damage against close enemies, distant damage reduction, 5 out of 3 in No Mercy, 15% in critical strike damage against immobilized, stunned, or slowed enemies. So critical strike chance, so this is against stunned enemies. One of the key things was getting Elias stunned at least a couple of times that's when you do the biggest damage. Vulnerability, dealing direct damage with a weapon mastery causes your next core skill to make enemies vulnerable. This was the combo of you would do a Death Blow, and then that would make your upheaval apply vulnerable to everything, the entire mob you're fighting. And then you can start Death Blowing through the mob and getting that cooldown back. For those of you who don't know, Death Blow is a skill where it refunds the cooldown if you kill an enemy. So if you can use this endlessly so long as you are killing enemies, which it changes a little bit with bosses, but with Elias it actually helps because he does spawn mobs, unlike a lot of bosses where it's just the boss, so you're having to wait for those cooldowns. If you kind of position Elias so there's also mobs near him that you're killing at the same time, you can keep getting charges of this, as opposed to doing 2 and then having it be on a cooldown. I also have 2 here because having 2 charges of this is an affix, so I'll show that in a minute. Thick Skin, each time you take direct damage, you gain 1.1% base life as Fortify. You are taking direct damage a lot, so this means you essentially always have Fortify up, which is good for some other things. I only have 1 point in this. 2% additional reduction in damage with Fortify, but I do have some on my Paragon board that helps with that. When you have Fortify for over 50% of your maximum life, you deal 12% increased damage. I don't know if this is better than putting more points in this, but I do find myself, probably not for Elias because you're getting hurt so much, but I do find myself having over 50% Fortify a lot, so 12% damage increase is good. Moving down here, I took ultimates out. The cooldown was too long for how fast Elias could burst you down. So I was waiting for a stun, and then I would use Call of the Ancients, and it's not worth the slot. So I replaced the ultimate with Warcry, which is up a lot more, is a lot more active and more applicable. Because the Call of the Ancients, you can't really predict where those guys go, so they might just be off like trying to kill flying around succubuses and stuff while you're trying to get him to like DPS Elias. You can use Breath of the Berserker, but that's not really, it doesn't really work well for this build. So, and then same thing for Iron Maelstrom. This is like kind of a weapon swapping build that's good, but it's not appropriate for this. So none of these really worked. Wallop, your skills using bludgeoning weapons deal 15% damage if the enemy is stunned or vulnerable. That's kind of self-explanatory. And then the capstone I have is increase Berserk's maximum duration and increase its damage bonus by 25%. It is already a 25% damage bonus, so that's 50% damage. And as you could see here, I have a lot of things that give me a lot of Berserk. So I have Berserk up a good amount of the time. Now I will show you my gear. So it's a lot of defensive stuff, especially for Elias, but I'm still doing a ton of damage, so that really helps. This helmet, I will mostly focus on the affixes because I do not have like perfect rolls on all of the other stats. This helmet is amazing because this gives me 4 ranks of death blow, which is the max, and it gives you a 4,000 damage barrier when you hit an elite. So that is an instant. I'm more than doubling my life just with that barrier. The first time like I hit Elias essentially, so I can absorb a good amount of his initial, when you get hit by his stupid little skull thing. So that was very helpful. I had max life gems in all of these, but I learned that for my fortified build, having damage reduction while fortified is better, which is why I have these everywhere, and that has led me to not profile. Where is it? Damage reduction while fortified. 30% damage reduction while fortified now. So that's gotten to become a very good stat. I keep doing that. All right. You can add me on Blizzard, but I'm probably not going to answer because my friend requests are a mess. I keep doing that. Okay. Moving on. This is my chest. A lot of inefficient things here. It does have 20% weapon mastery damage, and Death Blow is a weapon mastery skill. 5% armor is good, and then I imprinted this with weapon mastery skills have an additional charge. Given how much damage you're doing with Death Blow, that is essential for this build, 100%. You have a 50% chance on a lucky hit to stun them. That's not really necessary, but it can apply additional stagger to bosses and stuff. So, okay, gloves. What were these gloves? Okay, so dexterity. So this is 2 extra ranks of upheaval, 10% attack speed, useless Hammer of Ancients upgrade. But, okay, so I have distant enemies, 8% chance to be stunned for 2 seconds. I don't know, that's nothing, but the point of this is you deal 36% more damage to stunned enemies. It's not just those stunned enemies, it's all stunned enemies, as far as I know. So that is why I have this on here. I'll get to this in a minute, but before I got this Death Blow unique, which I know everyone will not have because they're so rare, I had a two-hander which had this on it, except the max for a two-hander is 80% increased damage to stun, and I had an 80% one, so that's what I was using before this. Legs, 2 ranks of charge, nothing. Maximum life is good. 11% damage reduction while fortified. Very good, very good. 2 ranks of kicks, nothing. Okay, and then if you don't have sockets, add sockets to things. You want all the sockets you can have for at least gear that you know you're going to stick with. This is a really low. I didn't realize how low this item power was on this. I can't even upgrade it again. Okay, but anyway, it's probably not my most ideal pair of pants, and yet it served me well because basic skills grant 20% damage reduction for 6 seconds. Again, I was saying how important damage reduction is, so that is a 20% damage reduction for 6 seconds, and you can just you're doing your basic attacks a good amount to build up fury and stuff for in between death blows, so that is a pretty constant 20% damage reduction. Boots, this is not really a part of the build in the traditional sense. This is my pair of unique, I call them Frosties from Destiny. The main thing here is I needed the movement speed for Elias. So this has the max possible roll of its movement speed, plus 75% movement speed after an evade. And he just, all these stupid floor circles and fire skulls he throws out, having that move speed was pretty essential for getting out of some tough situations for a class that has almost no mobility unless you have leap or something on. Everything else, crowd control duration, that's good for stun. Slow duration reduction, whatever. Cold resistance, whatever. The chill enemy thing, you deal more damage to chilled enemies. I don't know. It's fine. Like, it's not the best unique perk, but these boots just feel good because of the massive movement speed increase. I could have probably picked like a more relevant perk or something, but these serve me well. Jewelry is my amulet. It's not great. I could have picked a better amulet for here, but again, I went for attack speed for building up stagger on Elias with my bash when I didn't have ground stomp up. I could definitely find. I switched a bunch of different amulets in and out here, but I think this is the one I ended up with. And then critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed. It's pretty easy to get criticals with upheaval because it hits like 8 enemies. So that's another 30% attack speed increase. This is my ring, which has increased damage while berserking, increased damage while stunned, and increased critical strike chance, and increased barrier duration, which is good because this is a barrier item where between iron skin and then this, I have a barrier up a good amount of the time, so I'm doing an extra 20% damage when I have barrier active. Oh, also in my jewelry, I have skulls right now because armor is better than resistance. However, with Elias, I would put in some fire resist. I got up to, I had like 67% fire resist, and that ended up reducing fire damage by like 33%. Resistances do not scale well in this game. They drop off very, very fast, so like getting to 100% is absolutely pointless. You do not want to do that. For Elias specifically, because of all his fire attacks, I would put in some rubies in here, which is going to really jack up your fire resistance for at least that fight specifically. In general, no, you don't want that. You want armor, but that's just for this fight specifically. Okay, I also have this ring. Damage is slowed, whatever. This had natural 30% fire resist, so that was good too. 20% damage to stunned enemies, lucky hit chance, damage while berserking, and then basic skills gain 30% attack speed. So as you can see, I have a good amount of attack speed for my bash here. I know in the long term, attack speed is probably not a great thing to have, but I don't know. It's working for me. The ability to stun an elite that quickly on just a couple hits of bash if I don't have ground step up is really important. So like I get that it's not important on many builds, and like if you're building a bleed build or whatever, like it's pointless. But for me, I don't know. It works really well. This was actually a big boost when I started putting this on. This is my slashing weapon, which I'm not actually using, but the ground stomp effect it applies here where you're doing AoE damage, which is not a ton of damage. The damage isn't the important part. While you're standing in the area of ground stomp now where this earthquake is created, you deal 24% increased damage. That's a lot of increased percent damage. So I did not have that on when I was first fighting Elias, and I think this is one of the big reasons that I was able to chunk him as hard as I did. In all my weapons here, I have increased damage to crowd control enemies, so that's increased damage when they're stunned. I don't think vulnerable is not. No, vulnerable is a separate gem. You could also do that instead. This is a stun build, so I did this. These axes. Okay, the affix here. After spending 100 fury, your next weapon mastery skill deals 94% more damage. That is three uses of upheaval. I think is 100 fury, and then you are doubling the damage of your death blow. That is, again, contributing to the huge chunks. This, attacking with a basic skill, increases the net damage of your next core skill by 8% up to 30%. This is not, I don't know, there's probably a better one here. However, for mobbing, you're increasing your damage on upheaval is pretty good because you can really kind of clear out. It's not just death blow being your only move here. Like, upheaval is pretty good. Upheaval's not what you want to be using against bosses necessarily, but this really did help for his mobs and like either killing things like succubuses or getting them low in between death blows, and increased the damage by 30% is very good. And here it is, your moment of Zen. I was not using this before. I was sticking. I did use this for the Elias fight the first time, but for a long time, even after I got this, I was still using the 80% damage to stunned. However, I took this to max, and it wildly buffs the stats. 67% overpower damage, 60% damage to injured enemies, critical strike chance against injured enemies, Yeah, 30% physical damage, and then so this is a really low roll on the affix, and if I get another one, I will. Well, it would have to be ancestral now, but it creates a shockwave dealing 18% of its base damage to enemies, and then if enemies die to that, it also resets the cooldown, so not just the main hit. I didn't really understand what this was like until I started using it. It's essentially becomes like Hammer of the Ancients almost, where it creates like a string of damage in front of you, or like a little mini cone that shoots outward to kill things that way, which is very awesome. And it's totally changed this build ever since I realized I should indeed be using it. Again, when I took Elias on the first time, still was not doing enough to help me by itself, but in combination with everything else I'm talking about, yes. Okay, so Paragon, I will go over briefly. As you can see, also I took this on at level 68. The leveling is not really the thing. Like you're getting some benefit from leveling for sure, but you can beat it at lower than that. I just wasn't building properly. However, one thing that also really changed the game here was this entire area. This is just the starter board here. So you have your rare nodes, armor, damage with mace. Okay, so I'll go to that in a minute. Armor, physical damage. This is 30% more physical damage. More physical damage down here. A lot of physical damage. The key here was this glyph. So this glyph is the only glyph I have been leveling for the entire Nightmare Dungeon thing. Damage with maces. So this is mace-based build. Make sure your death blow is using your mace. When you go to the skill menu, you can pick which weapon things are using. Where's death blow? You can cycle weapon, like cycle the weapon you're using, which you can't. Okay, you just want to make it to bludgeoning. Oh, there we go. Okay. You are middle clicking to change this because that's what you want to be using because you're doing damage with maces, which is very important. So what this does is for every 5 strength in the area, it increases your damage with maces by 4%. This starts at like 1 point something percent, but when you level it, it gets higher. So before I hit level 15, it was like 30% damage with maces or something. Then I expanded the radius by leveling it to 15, so that included all these other strength nodes that it wasn't including before. So that got me up to 57% increased damage with maces. So that not only helped me crush Elias, I am now doing quite well in World Tier 4 too, even after post Elias. Besides that, my Paragon board here is overpowers with a bludgeoning weapon, stun enemies, and grants you 20% of your life as Fortify. All the Fortify stuff. This is all Fortify things, so this is more damage reduction while fortified. This is something I do not have the requirements to meet for the bonus, but this is more damage reduction while fortified. And I go over to here, damage well fortified. I'm missing these requirements. I gotta keep up with these requirements. And then damage while fortified, damage while healthy. And then I go down here to bludgeoner, so 20% damage with 2-handed bludgeoning weapons, 30% overpower damage. Somehow I dropped my strength. I got to get my strength back up, but I'm missing these bonuses. But I have the rare nodes that are another 15% damage with weapons. So everything really sunk into mauls or maces and bludgeoning weapons. So this really helped, like very much helped. And I'm making my way over to this glyph socket and stuff, but like if you're on your way over here, like delete everything like that is not absolutely essential. Like I had this maximum life node on before, but I took it off to start moving toward the glyph after Elias. So now I need to work on getting my strength up and my willpower up because I've lost some of those stats with some gear changes, but I will keep working on that. Anyway, that's the build. Strategy. It was a lot of face tanking. I did not do. It was a very short fight. I should have recorded it, but it was a very short fight. It was a lot of popping iron skin when I was in trouble, and just getting the stun damage up on him as much as possible. When the mobs appear, using upheaval to try and clear them out as soon as possible, or slamming them with death blow themselves, because you can one shot all of the weak mobs, if not multiple of them at a time. The succubuses, the little hell fiends, things get a little more complicated when the Balrogs come, but you can stun those pretty easily, and your fire resist will help you against that too. And then you can just start chunking Elias. The one thing you definitely have to dodge are his floor circles. Like, those are the worst ones. Dodging the skulls is a little easier, like running in a circle, but when those floor circles come up, you got to get out of there. And then once he's stunned, you just go absolutely nuts with your death blow, and you make sure Warcry is active when you have enemies around, so you just start chunking him with death blow. Run around again until you get your cooldowns back. Try and ground stomp him again in terms of getting his stagger up. Hit him with bash when you can to get his stagger up. And then I had all those attack speed increases, so that really kind of applies quickly. And then again, Iron Skin is a pretty low cooldown, like 14 seconds, so you can pop that a lot. You can obviously be, if you're really low, you pop this and then pop a potion to recover by the time that is over. Yeah, so you'll figure it out. It took me, I think I died 15 times to Elias the first time. This took me 2 tries. 2 tries this time with this build. It was just, it felt so wildly different. And like, I was getting like 2-shot by his flaming skulls before, and the ability to not get 2-shot by those with all the other stuff I added to this was very helpful. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully this will help you if you're a barbarian struggling with Elias, which I think a lot of barbarians will. But yeah, so anyway, I'll talk to you soon. Take care.